Hello everybody and welcome to my general leveling guide. This is going to be applicable to any class. Now these tips are going to help smooth out your leveling experience and really make sure that you're doing things a little bit more efficiently. So the first tip that I have here is remember this: the legendaries are gonna guide you. I know that you have people, they have like this build out and this leveling build out and this leveling build out, but ultimately those are really only going to help to an extent, because if you just keep getting aspects and you keep getting legendary drops that don't go for those builds, you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot if you try to do it just because that build is strong. Now if you happen to find those legendaries, cool, do it. But you know, early on I wanted to play a werewolf druid. Guess what? All of a sudden I'm doing landslide because all of my legendaries are landslide legendaries. So in order for me to get through the game, you know, that's what I have to do. So just make sure you follow the legendaries that you get and just kind of let it guide your build paths. You know, don't hinder yourself. The next thing I want to say when it comes to gear is, you know, focus on going through the campaign. You get a decent amount of weapons, items, etc., stuff like that from the campaign. Not only that, in order to be able to get the better loot and to get the better drop rates, you're going to need to get World Tier 3 and World Tier 4 unlocked. You do that by completing the game. So it's going to be really important that you've really focused on those acts, which is going to kind of bring me to the next tip here, and that is going through the campaign as your main objective. Now, while you're doing the campaign, I do have a couple tips here. So as you're going to various dungeons and quests, make sure that you do the events and stuff that are on the way. Now there is going to be one event, which is the one you see here. It's called the Gathering Legions. You kind of want to check your map. This one is worth doing because it's going to give you a ton of gear, but generally speaking, you don't want to run super far out of your way to go do an event. This is kind of the exception to the rule because it just has such a good chance to drop good gear. You'll get a Gathering Legions event in every single zone, but you want to make sure you get that main story done, because in order for you to get your mount, you also have to have Act 3 done. Once you get Act 3 done and you get to the beginning of Act 4, then you'll finally be able to get the mount. And keep in mind, you can do these acts in a different order, but you want to make sure that you aren't completely under leveled, because if any quest or anything you're trying to do requires you to do a stronghold, which is an event that has a minimum level, you could really hurt yourself. And if there's a zone out there that's going to have minimum level stuff, especially for doing things like a Sheva, yada yada, it's it's going to be pretty hard. So I don't necessarily know if I would recommend it, but I know, for example, if you want to get your druid boons unlocked, even though technically it's unlocked at level 15, the minimum level for that is level 19, I believe, or something like that. So it's like you want to make sure that you're a certain level. And then you have things like like Malnock. Gosh, I think I tried doing that at level 10, but that was level 15 one. So you got to be careful and you got to watch out for that stuff. You don't necessarily just want to beeline for things. It can hurt yourself. So be a little bit smart about it. So the next thing as you're going through the dungeon, is going through the campaign, is make sure that it's not really necessarily worth it to just kind of spam do dungeons necessarily, because you need to get the campaign done anyway. So just focusing on the campaign is going to be a little bit better. So if you do dungeons, do it for your class specific ones. Don't just do all of them just to do all of them. You're kind of just, I don't know, I guess wasting a little bit of time there, because not to mention, if you end up leveling another class, you could just do those dungeons on that class and get way more of a benefit from having those, kind of a 2-for-1. You're actually getting experience and stuff for it, while also it being useful for leveling up that class. So getting the general ones can be good, but if it's an aspect you don't need, you don't necessarily need to go spend the time, especially early on when you don't have the legendaries and stuff. Those dungeons are going to take a little bit of time, and some of them could be pretty hard depending on what your build is, and stuff like that. So that's gonna be it for the campaign stuff. Now the next tip I have here is going to be breaking down all of your yellows early on. So early on, you're going to need veiled crystals in order to put aspects onto gear. It's going to take 2 if you're using an extracted aspect from a drop legendary, and it's going to take 6 if it is just from a dungeon aspect that you went and unlocked. So that means you're going to have to break down 6 rares. And early on, you don't really start finding rares In legendaries, you find legendaries semi frequently, I guess. Once you start getting around level 20, you start to see them drop at level 15. When it comes to the rares, I mean, you really don't see a whole lot of those until level 15. Once level 15 happens, they start kind of dropping like hotcakes, and you'll be full rared out pretty quick. But just keep that in mind early on. If you have a specific aspect you're going for early on, you're going to need veiled crystals to do that. And also, I don't really know if there's a reason to break down the blues and the whites. I'm not really sure necessarily what those are used for yet, but I've just been selling those, and the reason for that is to get the gold that you need to do the aspect. So keep that in mind. You're going to need the veiled crystals, and you're going to need the gold. So I think selling the whites, selling the blues is going to be better than breaking down the whites and the blues. So that's going to really be it for gear. Don't neglect the blacksmith if you want to. It does do pretty good for weapon upgrades. Like if you haven't found a weapon upgrade in a while, nothing's dropping for you. Don't be afraid to go to the blacksmith and see how much it costs, so you can just kind of upgrade your weapon through that, because that weapon damage is going to be really, really important. Also, this is kind of a minor thing, but pick up all the mats you see on the ground, because you're going to find that they're used for various things, such as potions, right? So whenever you pick up like the ingredients from the bushes and stuff like that, like bristleberry and whatnot, that helps you make a potion. And you ideally want to have a potion going all the time, because all of them across the board have a 5% EXP buff, and they have like a cold resist buff, so, and etc. etc. and stuff like that. So yeah, the next tip I have is make sure that when a Sheva and all that stuff spawns and the world bosses spawn, you're at level for it. I know it seems really tempting to go in there like low level just to see if you can kind of leech off of it, but this is going to be early on. You're going to be wasting your time, and you're going to be wasting everybody else's time there. So I really I really would not suggest that. All right, my last tip for you is very simple. I know there's a lot of content creators out there that are making guides and stuff, but don't let them kind of solving the game and min-maxing the game ruin your fun. Don't be afraid to shut off YouTube and play the game the way that you want to play it. Kind of experience that sense of childlike wonder. And with that being said, like, subscribe if you want to see more, and enjoy the game, and I'll see you guys next time.